everybody deserves to be congratulated for making this big step. It's a very, very big step to decide to learn the Hebrew language, because without Hebrew, you can't get anywhere. As a Jew, if you don't know Hebrew, I always say you're illiterate. You're like an Englishman who doesn't know English. You know, you can live, you can eat, and you can drink, and you can survive. But I mean, it's what sort of survival is that? It's not. You're not part of the world if you can't speak English. The same as a Jew. If you don't know Hebrew, you can't open a chumash. You go to shul. You can't translate the siddur. I mean, you're lost. You're just completely illiterate. And you know, if you think you can make do with translations, translations are very, very poor substitute for the real thing. In fact, they put you off. I get put off. I mean, if I look in the prayers, if I look at it in a single siddur or any of these, I mean, I quite frankly, I don't know what half the words mean. You know, all these old archaic English words. You really don't know what it means. I always remember that Shapa came for the first time to the synagogue. He was sitting with me, and I had him next to me, and I tried to explain a little bit about the service. And then when it came to the Shema Esra, I said, now it's all going to be quiet for the next few minutes. It's sort of a silent prayer. But if you want, you can say it a little bit in the English. And I opened up the single siddur for him, and I said, look, this is where we're up to. You can read a little bit in English, you know, what we're all reading. After the Shema Esra, I looked to see where he was up to, and it was a few pages before the place where I told him to start. And I realised I'd forgotten to tell him that in Hebrew we go from right to left, and he would just come to the bottom of the page. He was just turning the page over to the left. He was carrying on reading. You know, and I thought to myself, well, that's funny. You know, how did he do that? You know, didn't he realise that there was no continuity? And then I looked at the siddur, and I saw there's as much continuity if you go from left to right. The whole thing is just a lot of gibberish. If you can take the siddur in English, read it through, read it backwards, and it makes just as much sense as what it's just. You just lose out if you don't know the Hebrew. The Hebrew is so beautiful and so lovely that you're just missing out really 95% of the whole meaning of it if you've got it in English. I always say, if you look at the chumash, I mean, every word counts, every letter has got meaning to it. All that is missed and lost, the nuances of meaning, are all lost when you've got an English translation. I always take the example, I compare it to a silhouette. You know, if you see a silhouette of a person, just in black, the outline, then you've seen the person, you know roughly what he's like, you know whether it's a man or whether it's a woman, whether he's tall or whether he's small or fat or anything, but you don't really know what he's like. If you see that person, suddenly you put the light on him, and you see him in full colour, you see his face, and you see, it's a different thing altogether. Then you get to know the person. And that's what the English is. It's a sort of a silhouette of the Hebrew, of the Chumash. All the beauty is lost, and then it's just lucky. And probably a lot of people have been put off Judaism by looking at the English translation and say, well, that's what it is. You know, it doesn't sound terribly exciting, whereas in fact it is very, very exciting. Okay, well, we've come here this morning, and we're going to put a stop to all that. We're going to now embark on this special course, which is going to teach you the whole lot in 11 weeks. You've got right through the course. I know it's 12 lessons, but 12 lessons is 11 weeks, as anybody knows. Right? In 11 weeks' time from now, we'll be on a 12th lesson, and you'll walk out with Hebrew in your pocket. So by the time you go away on your holidays, you'll go and you'll take Hebrew in your bag. You'll be taking Chumoshim and Siddurim and all sorts of literature with you, you know, reading matter. Now, we are probably at slightly different levels. Some of you might know a few words or a few little bits and pieces, some of you know less. At the beginning, we'll be a little bit out with each other, but after the first lesson or the second lesson, we'll all be more or less on the same level. So we'll be patient with each other the first lesson, and nobody's going to be bored. I'm sure even in the first lesson there'll be a few things that you don't know, even if you know the beginnings of Hebrew. What we're going to do is that in every lesson we're going to learn a few new words. We've got to have a bit of vocabulary, but the vocabulary is minimal. I'm not going to bother you with reels and reels of vocabulary. And we found out that we can get the entire Hebrew language boiled down to 200 words. And out of those 200 words, you can manufacture all the rest. Not quite all the rest, 93% we say. That's 93. With this course, you know 93% of Chumash and Siddur. We're going to learn a bit of grammar, But don't worry about that. People are always put off by grammar because they've seen grammar books and they're really very forbidding looking things, awful, all sorts of tables and weird looking phrases. We cut all that out. We simplified it so simple it's a child can do it. We have children here of 8 years old who've done the course right through and they've enjoyed every minute of it. It is, we take out all the unnecessary difficulties and we make it absolutely simple. To give you an example, all the tables that you see in an ordinary Hebrew grammar book, there are hundreds and hundreds of tables to be learned. And this course, you can't do without tables, but we've got altogether, we've got 2 tables. That's all. 2 tables is a substitute for all the hundreds of tables that you see through in the grammar books. So every day we will be learning sort of a little bit of grammar, a few words, and I'll give you out some exercise sheets that you'll be able to exercise your Hebrew on. And all I want you to do is, and I must insist on this, that you've got to review the lesson every day. Spend a few minutes, 5 minutes a day, going over what we've done. That's all. Just go over the exercise. And even if you know it already, keep going over it again. It's not like mathematics where once you know it, you say, okay, I've got that, I don't need to go over it again. In a language, obviously, you've got to keep going over and over and over again till you drum it into your head, till it becomes second nature, so that by the time it comes to next week, you won't even have to think about those words will be part of your brain. They'll be assimilated into your system and they'll be part of you. You don't want you to have to think on the second week about the vocabulary of the first. That first week is yours. Right? After a few weeks you'll be dreaming in Hebrew already. Right? It's as simple as that. Okay. Excuse me. Now, everybody should have a file, and if you haven't got a file, ask me for one, because I'm going to give you a paper and worksheets, and you clip them all into your file. Always keep it together. Please don't forget to bring your file along next week. You don't want any shlemaza coming along and saying, oh, I left my file at home with all the notes in it. Please make sure you bring them along. I've got spare paper here. If anybody wants paper, you can help yourself and take whatever notes you want. Now, today's lesson is the worst of all the lessons of the course, because it's heavy. You've got to take off. You know what it's like if an airplane takes off. Then you always need maximum fuel. The fuel that you need to take off is more than you do once you're up in the air. Then you keep going. So today we've got to really work hard to make the takeoff. But once we're over today, then we'll just be coasting along, and in 8 or 9 weeks we'll already start on the descent path, and we're down and it's all over. Now what I'm going to do is, for the vocabulary, I told you we boiled it all down to 200 basic words. So I'm going to give you the vocabulary. It's all on one sheet of paper. The entire Hebrew course is on one sheet of paper. All the vocabulary. I've got the grammar on another sheet of paper, one sheet of paper. That's all we do in the whole course. Now, this vocabulary here, I'll give it out to you. It's worth its weight in gold. This is very, very specially worked out vocabulary. And perhaps if I pass it round quickly, then you'll see how it works. But it is really, I can guarantee you, it's worth its weight in gold. You can see it is in fact printed on gold leaf, as you can see from the colour. Right? And that's as true as I'm standing here on this spot. Yeah. Okay, everybody got a copy?
No.
Oh, okay, pass them down. I see on some of these sheets the top letters haven't come out, but it should say first day in the top right hand corner, sort of square of about 20 words. It should say first day on the top, and on the left hand top corner it should say third day. Okay, you can write that in. First day in the right hand corner. It's just come out faintly on some of yours, and on the left hand corner it's the third day. Second day, I don't burden you with any vocabulary. Second day, you have a holiday. Okay. Now keep these in your file because you'll need it. Now, what I've done here, I'll just explain to you very briefly, if I can have your attention just for one moment. These words are not just a hodgepodge of words thrown together. What I've done is, I've sorted out these words, we put them strictly in order of frequency. We've done a sort of a scientific investigation into the frequency of the words in the Hebrew language, and the words are placed in order of frequency, so that we do the most frequent words first, and then the less frequent words, and so on. So that way, it's a very simple device, and that way you get your quickest entree into the Hebrew language. That's how after one or two lessons, you'll already have quite a high percentage of vocabulary, because it's out of proportion with the words. Now you'll notice there, on the right hand side, we've got nouns, and then to the left of that we've got a few verbs, and then to the left of that we've got a few miscellaneous odds and ends words. Right? Now, I try to help you with this by giving you a little bit of association. We've all got some association with these words, and that helps to make it easy to remember. Now the first word there is about Odom. By the way, some of you pronounce Ashkenazi and some of you pronounce the Sephardi pronunciation. Is that how many people here pronounce the Ashkenazi way? And how many pronounce the Sephardi way? So we've got a few this way and a few that way. Well, I hope you just have to get bilingual in this. I personally pronounce the Ashkenazi way. I could try to pronounce the Sephardi way, but then most of you probably wouldn't understand it. And probably even the Sephardi ones amongst you wouldn't understand my Sephardi pronunciation. So I'm better off, I'll pronounce it the Ashkenazi way, and you'll get used to it. We have to learn to be bilingual in this. Okay, the first word, Odom, which would be Adam for the Sephardi. Odom is a person. You know, from Adam, the first human being that we have in the Torah, the first person, he was called Adam. So that's Odom. Then we've got the word Ish. Now the word Ish means a man. I don't know whether you've got any association with that. Yeah, probably not, but you just have to remember Ish means a man, and the word Isha is a woman. Now you'll notice here that you've got this hey at the end of the word, and this you should remember throughout this course. The hey is a sign of the feminine. A hey at the end of a word is a sign of the feminine. You'll come across there's another sign of the feminine, and that's a top. The last letter in the alphabet, the top, is also very often associated with the feminine. I don't guarantee you that every time a word ends in hey or top it's feminine, but that's the general sort of association. So if Ish means a man, then you could almost guess that Isha would mean a woman. That's a chamor is an ass, a chamoro is a female ass. Sus is a horse, suso is, what is it, a mare? Is it a female horse? It's a mare, isn't it? Not to be confused with the mare, the cow. Okay, so that's Ish and Isha. Is that signal for me to start? Okay. Right. So Of is a father, and Aim is a mother. Have you got any associations with that? Anybody, if you've ever been in Israel, you hear children calling the father Abba and the mother Ima. I think people are familiar with that. And I think you get that probably in most languages, you get that V sound, V, F, P. That sound is the word for father, like in English, father, in German, Vater, in Latin it's pater. And you get a sort of, there always seem to be words with a sort of F, P, V sound for father. And the word for mother in most languages got a m sound, isn't it? Mutter, la mère. Is any other language anybody know? Chinese or Hungarian, anything? Arabic. Do you know Arabic? Do you know what's your name? Persian. What is it? And how do you say mother in Persian?
Mama.
Mama. Oh well, it sounds familiar. I think it's probably. I think I once saw that sort of a child. When it starts to make sounds, so the easiest sound for a baby to make is a m. When it first starts to learn to make sounds, it's going m, and every time it gets excited, it sees his mother, says ma, like that, and so this sort of m sound, ma sound, has come to mean mother. Sounds a plausible explanation. Maybe it's true. If it isn't true, it doesn't matter. At least it helps you to remember that aim is the mother and not the father. Okay, then we've got the word bain. Right? Bain, probably everybody familiar with bain. What is your Hebrew name? Do you know? You don't know your Hebrew name? Do you know? Have you got? What do you know your Hebrew name? What is it?
Michael ben Sussman.
Michael ben Sussman. So it means Michael, the son of Sussman. So Ben is son of, right? So remember that. Ben is son. And you get in Arabic, you get Ibn, so and so, Ibn, so and so. That means son of. So Ben is son, and Bas is daughter. There again, so you notice the tof at the end of the word, giving you that feminine connotation. Okay, now the last one is Och, which is a brother, and Ochos, right? Again, you've got that tof at the end, which is the sister. I don't know whether you've got any associations with Och, have you? Och? I always used to think of my brother sort of taking my toys away when we were playing, they take away toys and say, Och, it's silly, anything silly helps you to remember it. Or the sillier it is, the better you remember it. And it's the basis of all television advertising and all. We have a sort of special capacity for remembering silly things, so use that capacity to help you to remember the words. There's another way how you can remember this Och sound, and that is in genealogical tables. Usually get somebody here, and then he's got two sons, and you put one son there and one son there, so you get this sort of ches effect. The two brothers are sort of joined by this prong, by a ches. That's the way of remembering it, because people tend to get mixed up in Ov and Och. So remember that Och is those two prongs, the two brothers. Alright, everybody holding on so far? Okay, shall I give you 30 seconds to learn that off by heart? Alright, I'll give you 30 seconds break, and you can just review that and learn that off by heart. You want to switch that on. Okay, let's move on. Are we ready? Right, the verbs now. Omar is the verb to say, and diber is the verb to speak. Okay, you know the difference in saying and speaking. Probably a lot of you don't know the difference, but I'll tell you what the difference is. Speaking is the act of talking. If you're describing somebody, you say, I am speaking. Don't interrupt me, I'm speaking. Or I'm speaking on the telephone. You can never say, I am saying, or I'm saying on the telephone. Wouldn't make sense. When you say to say, then you've got to state what information you're giving. You say, the man said that. Right? Whenever you use the word saying, you've got to say what he actually said. He said, and it's always followed by the word that. And the same in Hebrew, Omar, when you say Omar, then you always have to say, well, what exactly was said. Whereas Diber, the Lord has spoken, Hashem Diber, the Lord has spoken. Right? Okay? It's always interesting, I find it very interesting that, having worked out this in order of frequency, that we found out that of all the verbs, the most frequent ones were the Omar and Diber, which probably means that of all the activities, verbs is what you do, of all the things that people do in life, they do more talking than anything else. That's an interesting reflection on humanity, that, but it's probably true. People are talking all the time. Most of it is utter rubbish, at least 80% of it is told. As somebody once did a survey, I remember reading about it. He went on with a tape recorder, recording hundreds of words of speech in restaurants and buses and on trains in the street, and he analysed all those words, and he found that over 80% of them were total rubbish, completely unimportant, useless words, things which had no value whatsoever. If a man said in a restaurant, please pass me the sugar, that was considered important words. It has a meaning, it means pass me the sugar, and it serves a certain purpose. But 80% of what people talked about, was rubbish, or even worse than rubbish. They're gossiping about other people or saying things which they shouldn't be saying. But that's how it is. We spend a lot of our time in talking. Now the word hoy, all these, we'll sort out the tables next week. We'll get extra tables. We'll make it a bit more comfortable for everybody. But first, we especially make it uncomfortable for the latecomers. It's part of how the course works. Gives you a positive incentive for coming early. We can show you here before 10:30 next week. Okay, all these verbs, please note that the form that they are in here, and the vast majority of verbs in the Hebrew language consists of 3 root letters. You'll notice that. All 3 root letters, like Omar, Diber, Hoyo. Now the form in which I've put it here, the basic form of those 3 letters, is the third person masculine singular in the past tense. Don't bother to write anything at this stage. I'll explain it all and we'll go over it later on. Because while you're writing, you won't be listening. And the third person singular masculine of the past tense. Got that, Stephen? Which means, in other words, he did it. But Omar is a form which means he said. Diber, he spoke. Hoyo, he was. Alright? If you wanted to say I was, or I will be, or any other form, then we have to change that, put little prefixes and suffixes on it. But as it is, bear those 3 letters, as they are on the sheet here, and it usually starts with an O, like O, Ma, Hoyo, Nosan, Yotso. That's always the third person singular of the past tense. He did it. Okay. Hoyo, he was. I don't know whether that's anything you associate with that. I know in the Adon Olam, we talk about God and say, Who Hoyo, Who Hoyo, Who Hoyo means he was, and he is, and he always will be. God is always there. That helps you to remember Hoyo, he was. Very important. The verb to be, one of the most important verbs in any language. Bo is the verb to come. I've got no association with that. Maybe in Israel, if you've been in Israel, you've heard the mother's function, Bo, come here. Nosan is to give. These are sort of hard. You just have to learn those by heart, those first 2 words. It's a little bit hard to have an association. Somehow it's easier to remember nouns than verbs. Nosan is to give. Also is to do. Also he did. Yotso is to the verb to go out. Anybody familiar with the term Motzei Shabbos? Motzei Shabbos is Saturday night after Shabbos has gone out. So remember, Motzoi, Shabbos, that is from the root Yotso, to go out. Yoda is the verb to know, and Lokach is to take. Now you won't be able to learn that just now. You'll have to sort of go home and you'll have to knock that into your head, those few verbs. But they're not too many. But they are a little bit difficult to remember. Now on the left-hand side, the miscellaneous ones, those are a little bit easier. Kol, that's a very, very frequent word. You won't have to remember that at all because it comes such a lot. Kol means all. When we say in Yom Kippur, Kol Nidrei, it means sort of all the vows and all the promises which I made to you last year. Please God, forgive me for if I haven't kept to them. We don't want to start off Yom Kippur with a load of, we're asking God, please do this, we promise you, and God will turn around and say, well, look, you promised all sorts of things last year, what's happened to all those promises? So we make a declaration at the beginning, please, all the promises which we made last year, in case we haven't kept them, please consider them null and void. So that's the beginning, kol nidre. Now the word lo means not, that you're probably perhaps familiar with, that you do in Israel. I always think an Israeli baby, the first word that they learn, I think even before mama, is lo, no. Tell them to do something, lo, no. I always hear that, lo. So lo means not. Now el is two, and notice that's spelled with an aleph lamed, two. And not to be confused with the last word on that list, if you look further down, it is the word al with an ayin, which means on or above. I always try to help people to remember that, you don't get mixed up. If you think of the El Al Airlines, right? What does El Al mean? It's not just a fancy name, El Al. El Al means to the above. That's how the airplane goes. It flies to the above. Right? That's El Al. Okay, it is in fact a phrase in Tanakh. Many people don't know that. They think it's just a nice sounding name, but it is a phrase which occurs in the Bible. So remember, El Al, you're going to the above. So El means to, and Al means above, on top of. Okay, that just leaves two words. The little word ki, which you won't be able to understand now because it's got three different meanings. Just to make things a little bit, it's getting too easy, so it makes it a bit more difficult. Ki can mean that, or because, or when. And depending on the context. It sounds awfully difficult, but it isn't. It all falls into place. And asher means which, or who. The English word who. In English you've got two words, which and who. They mean exactly the same thing. Except that when you're dealing with human beings, you say who, the man who came, and you say the house which is in the street. But it really has the same meaning, and in Hebrew you don't bother to use two separate words for it. It's just one word. It's more economic. Okay? So I'll give you another 10 seconds to learn that lot, and we're ready to start a little bit of grammar. To use these words. So I'm going to give you a few rules, and with these few rules you'll already be able to start to make use of these words, and then I'll give you an exercise and you'll see how easy it is. Now the first rule is that when you have a word, rule number one, when you've got a word like, let's say, vein. By the way, I should tell you, if you don't know this about the Hebrew language, the Hebrew language consists of consonants, okay? Bays and noon. Now there's vowels underneath it, obviously, right? And those vowels tell you how to pronounce the consonants. But the vowels can change, in different forms. Sometimes the vowels, don't bother too much about the vowels. Don't ask once it's and once it's or. It's the consonants that you've got to concentrate on. The consonants give you the word. Follow? Now, you've got the word bain, which means sun. Right? That's the vowel underneath. Can everybody see can you see the blackboard, Naomi? Okay, everybody can see it. You're okay with the lens, it's nobody's head is in the way. Okay, now if you put a hey, the letter hey, in front of a noun, then it means that. So the vein would become, let's say, the vein there, and we've got a hey there, and it's habain. Habain means the sun. Okay? What if I would say, of the father, and if I say of, what does that mean, Amy? The father. Simplicity itself. Okay? You're told it's already getting simpler now, the course. We're already very slightly taken off. We're leveling out. Rule number 2. For this first rule, in an ordinary, if you went an ordinary Hebrew course, they would send a whole lesson teaching you that rule. You'd be surprised. They could make it so complicated you wouldn't know where they were coming or going. But all you've got to remember is a hey means the. Sometimes it's ha, sometimes it's horse, sometimes it's hair, but that's not your problem, what it is. Because you'll see there in the Chumash, if it's ha, it's ha, if it's ho, it's ho. I'm not going to spend an hour telling you all the complicated rules of when it's ha and when it's ho. That's the beauty of this course. We don't bother about these sort of things. We can move on and we learn how to translate. Rule number 2. And that is that if you put a vav, the letter vav, before sort of any word at all, it means and. Okay? It's actually very interesting. I don't suppose anybody here has ever heard of the word vav. A vav means a hook or a nail in Hebrew. And in fact, it looks like, it looks like a sort of a hook. And when sort of you can nail two bits of wood together with a vav. So the letter vav, the Hebrew language is a fascinating language. The letter vav means and is what joins two things together. So if I would say, for example, I'll write it all in blue, or of, the, or aim, of, the, or aim, then that means, Mr. Catherine, Stephen, what does it mean? Of, the, or aim?
Or aim means and the...
I'm saying of, the, or aim, the whole sentence, the whole phrase.
Mother and father, man and woman.
Well, make up your mind. We're going to be very precise here. Or of, the, or aim.
Mother and father. The mother and father.
Angela, what's of, the, or aim?
The mother and the father. The father and the mother.
The father and the mother. Right? Get it right. We don't want any loose waffle here. We're here to learn Hebrew exactly. The father and the mother. Right? You notice you can have sort of two prefixes here. You've got a the or aim and the mother. So you get tremendous value out of the Hebrew language. See, one word in Hebrew here is 3 words in English, and the mother. See, on average, in a Pasuk and Chumash, one Hebrew word is usually the equivalent, can sometimes be the equivalent of 5 or 6 English words. One Hebrew word is the average of about 4 English words. Tremendous help that in your life. You get through much quicker. You can read much quicker because, the brain can take in information much more quickly than the eye can read it. So therefore you're held up, the brain is held up, when you read in English, the brain is held up by the eye, having to read it till you get to read the verse. In Hebrew, you just read just 4 little letters, it's a small word, aim, and it's already got 3 words there, and sometimes 4 words, 5 words. So in this way, after time, you'll see by the time you come to the end, you won't want to look at English anymore. It's so boring, it takes such a long time. Give it to me in Hebrew, you'll say, and we'll get it through in a quarter of the time. I always say, life is so short. We're here in this world for 70 years, 80 years, how long are we here for? If you can get 4 times as much done in your life, right, by switching to Hebrew instead of English, so instead of living for 70 years, you're living for 280 years. Right? You're adding another 210 years to your life. Right? For that alone, it's worth coming to the Hebrew course. Right? You must admit, you're getting good value for it. That's right, Susan? Okay, so this is it, for of, or aim. Right, rule number 3. We've got a little word in Hebrew, the word s. Now this is a funny, strange little word. I wonder if there's anybody here in the class who can tell me what the word s means.
Well,
The. You've just said that the hey is the.
It indicates a direct object of a verb.
Yes, very good. I'll explain to you what he meant. he meant to say the word S means nothing, right? It doesn't translate, but it denotes what we call the definite direct object of a verb, of a sentence. In a sentence you have a subject, and then you have a verb, and very often you have an object, right? The tiger ate the sheep, let's say. So the tiger is a subject, he ate, that's the verb. He ate what? He ate the sheep. Now, you have to have something. It's interesting, when you learn this course you'll start to understand how language is constructed. You always have to have something which sort of explains to you, you've got a few nouns, and you want to know which one is the subject and which one is the object. And did the tiger eat the sheep, or did the sheep eat the tiger? Which way around did it happen? See, now in the English language, what you do is that you place the object after the verb. By placing it after the verb, that tells you that that is the object. So you put the sheep, say the tiger ate the sheep. But in many languages, you don't do it that way, as you probably know. In German, for example, you have the verb at the very end. You've got a string of nouns, and you've got a verb at the end. And you're left not knowing, you think maybe the sheep ate the tiger. So it's not clear. So the way it's done in Hebrew is that you put the word, this little word S, before the object. Right? It might come long before the verb, but the word S comes before the, what we call the definite direct object. See, for example, if I say ho'och, ho'och, what's ho'och? Quickly, the brother. Ho'och ro'o. We haven't come across that verb yet. Ro'o means to see. Ro'o, he saw. Es ho achos. Ah, can't squeeze it on. Es. Try that again. S or close. Okay, so that means the brother, ro'o means saw, the brother saw, es ho'achos, the sister. Ho'achos is the sister, yeah? Es doesn't mean anything, but it tells you that it wasn't the sister who saw the brother. We're saying the brother saw. What did he see? Es ho'achos. Everybody clear on that? You follow how this S is used? You understand that, Susan? Susan, do you follow that?
Yes.
That S is the object. Can everybody see the blackboard clearly? Is anybody who can't see the blackboard? Any got any trouble? You can't see it?
I can see it, but if S wasn't there,
Yes.
it would still say the brother saw the sister.
Well, it wouldn't. I mean, you might say, well, what else could it mean? But it theoretically could even mean that the sister saw the brother. Just because the word sister is after the verb doesn't necessarily mean that that is the object and not the subject. In Hebrew, you have to put S there. Very often it does. Very often it does. But we do, in Hebrew, that's how the Hebrew language is, that you put the word S before the object. And you'll soon see certain cases where it would be ambiguous, it would be genuinely ambiguous, if you didn't have the word S there. I'll give you sort of plenty of examples where it could mean all sorts of different things, where it could mean he or she or something like that. Okay, now rule number 4. Rule number 4, I'm going to tell you how to form the plurals. In 2 ways. And that is, either we add to the end of the verb, to the end of the word, we add a little suffix im, like that. Or the second way how it's done is that we add the suffix os. Now, some nouns form the plural by adding im, and some form the plural by adding aus. It's not up to you. Right? I know it's a free country, but you can't. There's a limit to what you can do. Right? Some nouns take im, and some nouns take aus. See? So, for example, if we say we had the word ben to mean a son, now if I would say, if I would add on a little yud and a mem, and it's now pronounced slightly differently, it's called bonim. Bonim means sons. Now please learn to recognize Beis Nun is son. You've got to be able to recognize that. Just because here it's a final nun because it's at the end of the word, and here it's in the middle of the word, it's obviously not a final nun, and here it's Bein and here it's Bon, but that shouldn't put you out. You've got to learn to recognize Beis Nun, that means son. So Bonim means sons. But Av is what, Annabelle? Av is a father, and if I say Avos, it means Avos, Trevor? Fathers. Okay, especially took that example of as an example of one that uses aus as a plural, because we generally sort of associate im with masculine nouns and aus with feminine nouns. But I say generally because there are a lot of exceptions to that. Don't think that it's got to be that way. There are a lot of exceptions, maybe 20% of nouns that are the other way around. Now, for example, here Av is a father. Now, without knowing a lot about Hebrew grammar, but you know that Av is masculine, and yet, it's in the plural, it takes Avos. It's not Avim. I'm going to show you that Av is masculine. You're laughing, but it's not. It doesn't need to be masculine. You'd be surprised. I'm an Irishman, in case you didn't know it. In Irish, great what they have in Irish. In Irish, the word for a girl is Colleen, and the word Colleen is masculine. Would you believe it? It can happen. The gender of a noun has really got nothing to do with the sex of the object that that noun denotes. You know, in fact, in German you say das Mädchen. In German they've got a neuter as well. It's a girl, and yet she's neutral. Her sex is female, but the word Mädchen is neuter. The word doesn't necessarily need to be the same. The gender of the word doesn't need to be the same as the object which the verb denotes. Or the word animal, behemoth, is a feminine. The word animal is feminine in Hebrew. Now you could be referring to an ox, which is male. But the word animal, as such, the word animal is feminine. Okay, but having said that, all I mean to tell you is, don't worry whether it's im or aus. When you see it, you don't have to put the plurals on. You'll see it. If it's of aus, you know it means fathers. Now here, I've got a little unfortunate thing, which is not my fault, that's just how the language is, but it's a little bit of an unusual form. And that is the word men and women. Now we know that the word ish means a man, as we said here. And we would expect that the plural would simply be something like ishim. But it isn't. I mean, there is a word ishim, but it's rarely used. The common word for men is anoshim. Anoshim. That's the word for men. Anoshim is men. Right? how that comes about, where that nun comes from, there was an old Hebrew form for man, enosh. In fact, it's still used a little bit. We have in our prayers enosh to mean a man, and so the plural of that is anoshim. So it's just something you'll have to remember. Anoshim is men. Now that's only half bad. So we're going to go from bad to worse. Because the plural for women, a woman is isho, and the plural you might expect to be something like ishos or something like that. And yet the plural of women is something completely unexpected. It is noshim. Noshim. Totally unexpected that. That's a charming thing about women. They always come up with unexpected things. That's part of the charm, although it can be a pain in the neck when you're learning Hebrew. Right? So remember, anoshim is men, noshim is women. Don't get them mixed up. You probably remember that anoshim is got the same as noshim. It's got an aleph at the beginning. It's a little bit longer. Remember, men are usually generally taller than women. So, if you remember, men are a bit bigger than women on average. So, the bigger word is the men, and the smaller one is the women. Okay? Anybody got difficulty with remembering that? No? Okay, fine. We'll have a coffee break in a minute. You know, when you're just at the end of your TED and you're at a certain point of collapse, we bring in the coffee. Anybody reach the point of collapse already? Not quite. Okay, we'll carry on. One more stage. And this is maybe just one important rule, and this is something which everybody's got to know, and then we have our coffee break. And this is, can everybody follow so far? I mean, is anybody totally lost? Tell me honestly. You're not putting up your hand, are you? You're just holding your pencil.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like at the auction. So you put up your hand and we get various implications. Okay, we are now going to do a form which in Hebrew is called the smichus form. Smichus form. I'll explain to you what that is. Don't worry about it. This smichus form explains to you, you know, very often in a language, as we say, you've got a few nouns, and you want to know what is the purpose of this noun. Is it a subject or is it an object? You know, what exactly is the place that this noun has in the sentence? Now, sometimes you get one noun which belongs to another noun, like, you know, the ceiling of the room. So the ceiling belongs to the room, right? The roof of the house, right? The leg of the table. The leg belongs to the table. Okay, the table owns 4 legs. Right? So let's call the leg the article, and the table is the owner. Right? So the table owns 4 legs. So you have to have some way of expressing which is the owner and which is the leg. Right? Is it the leg of the table or is it the table of the leg? To follow? Now in English you use the word of before the owner, if you like. You say the leg of the table. Okay? In Latin you would put the table into certain grammatical forms. The genitive, you put it into the genitive case, and it has a special form. So you say the leg of the table. Now in Hebrew, what you do is that instead of doing anything with the owner, so to speak, you put the article into a special form called the smichus form. So I would put the leg, in our case, don't track anything down to the stage, you'll understand it by listening. The leg, so you put it into this smichus form, and then it means the leg of. Follow? So you say the leg of the table. Okay? So we want to know, how do you put words into the smichas form? How do you convert them into the smichas? Well, again, you could spend 3 lessons on explaining to you how that's done. I'm going to just tell you 2 rules. That's all you've got to remember, and you'll know how any word is put into the smichas form. Rule number 1 is that any word which ends in a hey, that little squiggle represents a word, it ends in a hey. When you put it into the smichas form, then that hey turns into a top. Okay. Anybody know what a simcha is? What's a simcha? Rejoicing. Right? Simcha, it's spelled like this. Simcha. Simcha. Now if I want to say the rejoicing of the Torah, it becomes simchas Torah. Simchas. See what's happened there? Simcho, it becomes simchas. Simchas Torah. The rejoicing of the Torah. Got the idea? Or if I would say the word Torah, the Torah ends in a hey. If I would say the Torah of Moshe, I would say Torahs Moshe. Alright? I want to give you another example. I'll put the example here. Ishor.
There's 12 here, bring another 8. Excuse me.
And then put the rest down at the far end.
Yeah, 1 second, I'll just make some more.
Okay, Michael, what's Ishor?
A woman.
A woman. Right? The word Ishor, by the way, can mean a woman or a wife. Right? It's the same word. Now, if I put that into the smichas form, it becomes Aleph, Shin, Tov. And in this case, it's pronounced a Shes. So if I say Ashes Michael, it means the wife of Michael. Right? Natalie Ashes Michael means Natalie is the wife of Ashes, the wife of Michael. Got the idea? Yeah, I didn't bother to put the vowels there. I didn't want to confuse you. But Ishor, wife, Ashes, wife of. Simcho, rejoicing, Simchas Torah, rejoicing of the Lord.
This is the word only ending in now.
Yes, the rule applies only to words ending in hey. That the hey turns into a tof. Alright? That's the rule, first rule. The second rule, okay, we can let it smell the coffee, so it's here. Just hold out to the second rule. And that is that any word which ends in im, like we had before, bonim, for example. You see down there? Im, that the im, when you put it into the smichas form, it turns to a. Like that. I'll give you an example. The best is to show it with an example. Take the word we had before, bonim. Onim that becomes Benay. Notice the im becomes a. Bonim, Benay. I'm sure you must have all heard the expression Benay Yisrael, the sons of Israel, or the children of Israel. So Benay means the children of. Bonim, sons or children. Benay, the children of. Got it? Clear on that? So anything ending in im turns into a. So Anoshim, for example, would be Anshe Yerushalayim, or the men of Yerushalayim. Noshim would turn into Neshe London, the women of London. Okay? Now, any noun that doesn't end in hey or in im, it stays the same. Okay? So a word like Melech, which means a king, if I would say the king of Israel, it's simply Melech Yisrael. It stays the same. So the only changes are either words ending in hey turn to a tov, and words ending in im turn to a. Okay? We can stop. Right, now on these white sheets which I've given you, please, as we go through the translation, don't write anything on this sheet. Don't be tempted to write a bit of English word or something over the Hebrew word. If you do, you've ruined the sheet for yourself, obviously, when you come to revise it. Don't add anything. If you want to write anything down, write it down on a separate piece of paper, but don't write it down. Keep this sheet absolutely perfectly clean without any marks whatsoever. Otherwise, you'll never be able to revise. Okay, let's see how we do. Let's start with Michael Boyer. We've got a few Michaels here, haven't we?
Yeah.
Okay, Michael. Habein Yotzo eligible. Read it out in Hebrew and then translate it.
Chabein Yatsa El Ha'isha, the son gives to the man.
Oh dear, that's not too good. Which word means the man? Isho, as we know by now that the hey at the end is the feminine, right? Ish is a man, Isho is a woman. You can't possibly make a mistake. If you tried to make a mistake, you couldn't make a mistake on that. Because Isho is the woman, Ish is a man. So let's start again. Yotso means
Gives to.
that is a verb for going out. Remember, these are all third person singular past tense. Habein Yotso El Isho. So the son
Goes out.
not goes out, the past tense.
Went out.
He went out, the son went out, El Isho,
To the woman.
to the woman. Okay, is that clear? You follow that? Habein Yotso El Isho. The man went out to the woman. Okay. Sorry, what did I say? The man, no, the son went out to the woman. I just managed to get me mixed up as well. It's not too difficult to do that, by the way. Number 2. Okay, let's give that to Stephen. That's Steve Gaffin.
Ha'ish diber el ha'ar. The man said,
Man spoke.
sorry, to to the father.
To the father. The man spoke to the father. Okay, number 3. Patricia.
Yitzchak Bayal ben Abraham. Yitzchak was the son of Abraham.
Right, very good. And Ben Abraham, I've noticed that the Ben doesn't change in the Tzmita, so simply Yitzchak Ben Abraham, Yitzchak was the son of Abraham. Okay, number 4, Ruth.
That's why I can't do all the ones you picked. I can't do this.
That's what I've picked us, but that's a special art which I've developed over the years. I only pick out the one that you can't do. You'll find that everything which I give to everybody else, that'll be the one that you can do. Okay, let's give it to somebody else. First time, so we won't be hard on you. Clive.
Number 4. Paro lo Yoda es Yosef ben Yaakov. Pharaoh didn't know Joseph, the son of Jacob.
Right, very good. Pharaoh lo Yoda. Yoda he knew. Lo Yoda he did not know. Es Yosef ben Yaakov. He didn't know. What did he not know? He didn't know Yosef, the son of Yaakov. Don't translate it as it's not. He didn't know that Yosef was the son of Yaakov. It doesn't say that and it doesn't say was. You see? You see now how this S comes in. You said before, what do we need the S for? The S tells you that Yosef, not he didn't know that Yosef, but he didn't know. What did he not know? He didn't know Yosef. Don't know the man, never met him in my life, so I don't know him. So it's the object. S Yosef. So Yosef is the object. What did he not know? He didn't know Yosef. Whom did he not? He didn't know Yosef, the son of Yaakov. Okay, that's all based on, these all taken, themes from the Torah. You remember, after Yosef died and Pharaoh made out he just didn't know Yosef and he turned against the Amnisrod. Okay, number 5. Charles.
All the brothers came to the man.
Can you read the Hebrew first as well? A bit of practice of Hebrew reading. Kol ha'achim.
Kol ha'achim ba'u el ha'ish. All the brothers came to the man.
All the brothers came el ha'ish to the man. Now, you're going to ask me, the word bo means he came. What's that little u doing at the end? Now, should I tell you what the u is doing at the end? The u at the end turns it from the third person singular to the third person plural. Remember I told you bo, that's the form in which you have it on your vocabulary sheet. Bo means he came. Bo'u means they came. Right? It turns the he into they. Got that? So you can add u to any of those verbs. Omar, he said. Omru, they said. Diber, he spoke. Dibru, they spoke. Got the idea? Okay, so Kol achim bo'u el ho'ish. All the brothers came to the man. Okay, next one, Ian.
Abbas lakha es ha'ish the es ha'isha. The daughter is that lakha?
Lokha. Now, lokach means
alright.
he took. At this time, I'll let you look in the vocabulary. For next week, you've got to know that vocabulary off by heart. So, lokach is he took. And so, Habas
Daughter
took.
the man and the woman.
Okay. The daughter took the man and the woman. What did she take? Es ho ish. Ish is the object of what she took. She took what? She took the man and the woman. The woman is also, there's two objects here, because she took the man and the woman. So you have es ho ish, ve es ho isho. You notice that again? You say ve es, because it's and, but you say the s again, and es ho isho. Again, lokach means he took. Right? Now here it says lokho. It's got a little hey at the end. Now is there anybody who can guess what's that hey for? Fun? I can hear somebody muttering, mumbling something. Have the courage of your convictions and say it out loud, whatever you're mumbling. Yes?
Make it feminine.
Make it feminine. Remember I told you hey is associated with the feminine. So lokach is the third person singular masculine. He took. You add a hey and you make it she took. So again, you could add that hey to all those verbs. Omar, he said. Omro, with a hey at the end, would be she said. Got the idea? Diber, he spoke. Dibro, with a hey at the end, would be she spoke. Okay, so we've learned two things now. If you want to turn the third person masculine into the third person feminine, you add a hey. Remember our little letter, ending letter, which symbolizes the feminine. And I also told you that if you want to turn the third person singular into the third person plural, then you add an u. And Omar, he said, Omru, they said. Bo, he came, Bo'u, they came. Okay? You've got that actually on your blue sheet. If you look on your blue sheet, near the bottom, 1-6. See what it says, the verb roots on list are third person, masculine, singular, past tense. E.g. Omar, he said. For feminine, add hey, and Omro, she said. And for the third person plural, add u, Omru, they said. Alright, anybody flummoxed about that, or is everybody clear? Alright? You're semi-flummoxed. Okay, you'll go over it and you'll understand it. It's quite simple, really. It's not difficult. But we're getting a lot of information here without you realizing it. Just without getting in through the back door. Big Swiss, this whole course. You know, it's sort of, you're getting information put into you and you don't even realize that you know it. Okay. So that's why it was Habas Lokho, because the Bas is feminine, so the daughter took, so instead of Lokhach it has to be Lokho, the daughter, she took. Number 7. For Ovos Nosnu es Habonim. Angela.
Ha'avot Natnu et Habanim. The fathers
Yes, good.
gave
Good.
the children the
Yes.
son.
Yes, the children of the sons. Nosan, remember that's on your vocabulary sheet. Nosan, he gave. Nosnu, they gave. So since Ovos is plural, the fathers gave the children. Alright? Don't ask me what it means. You can't expect meaning as well. We're doing grammar, we've got sentences, but they can't mean very much at this stage. Meaning is not part of the course, it's just doing sentences. But you'll soon get meaning as well. But with our limited vocabulary, we're taking these primitive sentences. So the fathers gave the children, right? Fathers, they went out to play golf, and they gave the children to the babysitters, right? Number 8. Stephen Truman.
All the brothers who came to Egypt went out from the land of Israel.
Right, very good. Mitzrayim, in case anybody doesn't know, Mitzrayim is the Hebrew word for Egypt. Comes a lot in the Bible. We have a lot to do with Egypt. And Mitzrayim, Egypt. So Kol Achim, all the brothers, Asher Bo'u, who came. Remember, notice Bo'u, third person plural. They came. All the brothers who came, El Mitzrayim, to Egypt. Yotz'u, remember Yotz'o, he went out. Yotz'u, they went out. May Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, as everybody knows, is the land of Israel. We haven't come across it, but you know that Eretz Yisrael is the land of Israel. And that me, what does the me bit mean? Me means from. Now, when you've got a prefix me, it means from. It's actually short for min. Ever come across the word min? The word from in Hebrew is min. Hamotzi lechem min ha'oretz. God brings out bread from the ground. So me as a prefix is short for min. You've also got that on your blue sheet. That's 1-7 at the very bottom. Me before noun is from, and it's short for min. Okay, so all the brothers who came to Mitzrayim went out from the land of Israel. At number 9, Bnei Yisrael Yotz'u Mitzrayim. Michael Wiseman.
Bnei Israel Yotzu Mitzrayim. The sons of Israel went out from Egypt.
The sons of Israel went out from Egypt. Right. Number 10. Susan, do you want to have a little go? Don't bother to write down the translation, because I'll give you a crib in case you need it. Don't you were out to writing out the translation? Yeah. No, don't bother. I'll give you a crib on that later on. Okay. Do you want to have a go, Susan, or you'd rather not?
I'd rather not.
You'd rather not. I shouldn't have asked you that. Where are we? Number 10. Okay. Who would like to have a go? Let's have a volunteer. Okay, Annabelle.
It's just Abraham. Pharaoh took the wife of Abraham.
Pharaoh took the wife of Abraham. Right? Notice that. Ashes Abraham, the wife of Abraham. So Pharaoh took, what did he take? Ashes Abraham, the wife of Abraham. Okay, Rachel, you want to go as well?
Abimelech לקח את רבקה אשת יצחק. And Abimelech took
Rivka is just a name. Rivka is Rebecca, yeah. Abimelech took Rivka,
the wife of Isaac.
The wife of Isaac. That Yitzchak is the Hebrew for Isaac. Please don't start looking up your vocabulary for what the word Yitzchak means. And these are proper names. Rivka is Hebrew for Rebecca. Yitzchak is Isaac. Abraham is Abraham. Right, and this is the story, as you know, when Abraham went down to Egypt and he had his wife. Anybody know what Abraham's wife was called? You know? Sarah, right? So Sarah, she was a very beautiful woman, and when they saw in Egypt, it was the sort of place where they were always on the lookout for beautiful women, and as soon as the beautiful women arrived, Pharaoh had his people who were on the lookout scouring around for these people, and she got taken away, and she got taken to the palace. So Pharaoh took the wife of Abraham, and then at a later time, a similar thing happened to Yitzchak. Yitzchak went to the land of the Philistines, and there the king was called Abimelech, and Abimelech took Rivka, the wife of Yitzchak. Okay. Hashem also as Adam. Number 12. Who hasn't had a go yet? Hands up who I've missed a few people out. Okay. Right. That I should say that Hey with a dash stands for Hashem. That is actually let me just put it on the side here. Hashem. Shem is a name. Hashem means the name. Now, whenever we use the name of God, you know, we say thou shalt not use the name of God in vain. So we don't actually like to speak out God's proper name as we find it in the Torah. We say, when we make a brachos, we say Baruch Ato Ado, you know how the name goes. But when we're just using it here, like we are here for learning purposes, then we just say the name. And that's Hashem, the name. Everybody knows the name, that means God. Or sometimes we call him HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He. I might slip into saying HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Well, you know that refers to God. And sometimes sort of for speed, we just sort of, instead of writing out the whole Hashem, we just write out the Hey, and we put a little dash after it. That's sort of when it's a short form. You've got to imagine the rest of it yourself. A Hey with a dash after it stands for Hashem. That's how we say God's name. Okay? So we've got here Hashem also es ha'adam. So, what does that mean?
Hashem asa et ha'adam. God made the man.
Yes, God created man. We say, alright, but you're quite right. God made the man. Alright? Last volunteer. Come on, who hasn't had a go? You haven't had a go yet?
No, I have to go.
You haven't had a go. There's somebody who hasn't had a go yet. Who is it? Huh? Natalie. You haven't had a go yet? Okay, come on then, don't be shy.
Kol ha'anashim v'kol hanashim ba'u. All the women and all the men came.
Which word means women and which word means men?
Ha'anashim is women. Men. Men.
Can't be both. You don't have a middle sex. What is it? Is it men or is it women? Don't get mixed up. You do know the difference in men and women, don't you?
I think
We once had a doctor here in the course. He was forever getting them mixed up. And I thought, oh, my goodness, you've got a doctor that doesn't know the difference in men and women. You know that? Yes. So which is it? Anoshim or Noshim? Remember how did I remember? How did I tell you to remember it?
Anoshim is men.
Yes.
Yeah, and Hanoshim is women.
Right. Remember the longer one, the Anoshim, the one with Aleph, that's men. So Anoshim is men and Noshim is women. So translate correctly. Kol for Anoshim, v'chol hanoshim bo'u.
All the men and all the women came.
And all the women came. Okay? There's still some people who haven't had a, well, hands up anybody who hasn't had a turn at all. Name me, who else? You haven't had a go? Just the two of you? Are there a few more? Seem to be more people here than senders. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, name me. You do for me number 8. Read it out loud.
Kol achim asher ba'u Mitzrayim yatzu me'eretz Yisrael. All the brothers
Or the brothers, did you say that?
Brothers, yeah. Who came to Egypt went out from the land of Israel.
Right, okay. All the brothers who came, asher bo'u, why has it got an u at the end of the bo? To make it plural. Okay, that's perfectly alright. And, okay, Trevor, you do number 10. You do 10 and 11 together because it's really all one big long sentence.
Do you want the Hebrew as well?
Yeah, why not?
Lakach es asher.
As Ashes, read it correctly.
Ashes, Abraham, Rabbi Yemelech, Lokach es, Rivka asher Yitzchak.
Ashes. Read it correctly.
Ashes Yitzchak.
It's wondering why I was asking whether I want the Hebrew.
Ashes Yitzchak.
Right.
Pharaoh took
Right.
the wife of Abraham.
Why is it Ashes? And what's the word for a wife?
Ish.
No,
Isha.
Isha,
Isha.
right? Remember? Isha.
Isha.
Aleph Shin Hey. And why is it here Ashes? Because it is the smichus form. Yeah, I don't like to call it genitive. See, if it was genitive, Ashes Yitzchak, then the word Yitzchak would be in the genitive. Right? But here we put the word Isha into the smichus form. Ashes Yitzchak, she is the wife, or Ashes Abraham, the wife of Abraham. Right? But Avimelech Lokach,
Avimelech took Rebecca, the wife of Isaac.
took Rebecca, the wife of Isaac. Okay? Right? Everybody happy about that? Is there anybody who hasn't had a turn at all? Okay. Now, what I want you to do, I want you to make sure that preferably this afternoon, before it's all over, if this afternoon, because the first time when you go over this, it'll all be new, and you'll have to spend a little bit of work on it. You won't be able to get away with 5 minutes. The first time it might take you half an hour or so. So try maybe this afternoon to, if you've got time, let's say half an hour at the earliest time, go through everything which we've learned today, the rules, the vocabulary. You've got your golden sheet for vocabulary, cover up the English, and go through the Hebrew, check it out, and go through the blue sheet, all the rules that we have learned. And then you go through the white sheet and check yourself that you know it all, and possibly go through it 2 or 3 times till you get fluent on it. Right? Now, let me just very quickly and briefly, have you got how much more time have you got? 10 minutes. 10 minutes, okay, you won't take that. Just very briefly, I'm just running through your blue sheet, and in case anybody's got anything that they didn't understand, this is the time to ask it. I gave you, first of all, you've got 8 vocabulary there for the first day. That's all self-explanatory. Then we had our rule number 1, that the hey before a noun means the. Remember, like Habain, the son of the father. Then we had number 2, I told you vov before the word, for any word, can be a noun, it can be a verb, it can be any word, like we had before s, we had the s, you remember? So vov before the word means and, like we had example for of, for aim, the father and the mother. Then number 3, s precedes the direct definite object. Right? Ro'o es achos, the brother saw. What did he see? He saw the sister. And then number 4, we have the formation of plurals. Plurals form by the addition of im or aus. And I told you the majority of masculine words end in im in the plural, and the majority of feminine words turn into aus in the plural. But there are a lot of exceptions on both sides. Probably many that you can think of yourself. In fact, we had the word for women. Remember noshim? Remember on the blackboard, noshim is women. It's not noshos, but it's noshim. Okay? Now, bonim is sons, avos is fathers. I've got there in brackets. Bonos is daughters. That's a sort of a funny thing, because you wouldn't expect bas to turn into bonos, but just like bonim are male sons, so bonos are female sons. The Hebrew word for daughters is bonos. There was in fact in ancient Hebrew, the word for a daughter, instead of being bas, had a nun in it, was sort of bant. I think in Arabic it's still, there's a word bant or bint, bint, something, that's right. In the army, when they say, oh, she's a real girl, and then say she's right, it's got a certain connotation, she's a bint. So you have that nun in it, so you see in the plural, you get that nun coming out, and it's bonos. I mean, you'd expect there to be a nun. If ben is a son, and then the top is added for the feminine, you expect it to be beis nun, top. And in the plural, that nun reappears, and we've got it in the form of bonos. Then I said to note the exceptions. Anoshim is men, anoshim is women, and remember the bigger one is the anoshim. Right, so don't confuse anoshim and noshim. Now number 5, I gave you the methods of converting to the smichas form, and we said simply that nouns ending in o, so the hey ending, that turns into the same thing with a tof, e.g. tauro becomes tauras, which means the law of. Isha becomes Eishes, the wife of. Right? We've had a few examples now. Eishes Avraham, Eishes Yitzchak, and so on. And the second rule was that nouns ending in im turn into a. So bonim turns into benay. Benay means the sons of. And you'll find later on, I didn't say plural here, because in fact there are certain words which are naturally im, ending in im, like water, for example, is mayim. It's the word for water, it's mayim. And if you say the waters of the Jordan, it is may. The mayim turns into may, the im turns into a. Follow? So instead of mem yud mem, you've got mem yud. Or shamayim, heaven, turns into shamay. So there are certain words which even in the singular end in m. So anything that ends in m turns into a. Okay, and then C, I said nouns with other endings remain the same. Now, number 6, we said that verb roots on the list are the third person masculine singular of the past tense. So that it means he did it. Remember, he said, he came, he went out, he took, he gave. So e.g. Omar, he said. And you'll notice most of them are this sort of o-a sound. Lokach, nok sound. Omar. And that's very typical of the past tense. But most verbs have got 3 root letters. Now, to turn that into the feminine, instead of he, you want to say she, you add a he. For example, omro, she said. The same, nos no would mean what? Nos no, she gave. Nos san, he gave. Nos no, she gave. Lokach, he took. Lokho is what? She took. Okay? And for the third person plural, if you want to say they, you add an u. And that's both the same in they masculine and they feminine. There's no difference. You always say u. So omru, they said. Lokach, he took. Lokhu, they took. Alright? Anybody not clear on that? Everybody happy? And finally, the mem before a noun means from, and that is short for min. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you a crib which you can use, and these are the yellow sheets. There's just plain yellow paper, there's nothing on gold this time, but it's plain yellow paper, and you've got here, and this if you want you can write things, here you've got a translation of these exercises. Okay, pass that down. Are you finished already? No, not quite, just 1 minute more. Have you got another minute still? 2 minutes. Okay, cut it off meanwhile till... maybe I'll just say my final sentence before we switch off. What you've got to do here, just don't pass them around, one moment, just hold on to it. You've got the English here, and it says here that these exercises should be revised every day for 5 minutes. Right? That's apart from the first day when you probably have to spend a half an hour, because then you're not reviewing it, you're actually learning it. But the quickest method is to translate